Hello and welcome to autoX. Now, if you've always wanted a Mini in your life and you wanted to go electric, well, until now you just had one choice, which was the Mini Cooper SE. But that left you the choice of either fun or family. And to solve that problem, Mini introduced this, the all-new Countryman, and in its electric form. Now, of all the cars introduced in this country, can this hit the perfect balance for an enthusiast with a family? Well, in this video, that's exactly what we're going to find out. So let's start with the styling, and the Mini Countryman looks as it does. It is styled to be based on a Mini Cooper design, but has its own element because it's meant to be larger for the family, if you will. This looks a lot more elegant. It still retains a similar silhouette, but it's boxy. It has SUV dimensions, but in a mini package, if I may. And as for the design and the color shades, well, Mini does have a lot of loud and quite bright color shades available. What we have here is a dark metallic grey, and that's finished with bronze accents. And in my opinion, it looks classy, but still Mini-like. And overall, one of the biggest takeaways from the new Countryman is that it's big. It's 1,300 millimeters longer and 850 millimeters taller. So overall, the dimensions have grown in every direction, and it really shows. With that, the wheelbase has also increased. So not only do you get a larger car outside, but inside as well. Technically, the Mini Countryman doesn't adhere to the Mini Cooper design norms. As you can see, the headlight is a lot sharper, but it still goes with that trapezoidal grille look. Then one of the highlights is definitely these 19-inch alloy wheels. They hit the perfect balance of look and comfort, which I'll come to later. Now overall, the car has gotten sharper, but the creases and the lines are still pretty clean. It is not a confusing or convoluting look. It's just large, it looks like a Mini, and it looks cutish, but in a mean way. Alright, so while the front and the side profile may not be all that different from the outgoing model, the rear definitely is. It looks a lot more contemporary, and I quite like it. Now, as I mentioned, the bronze accents, which you get all around the car with this color shade, you also get it in the Countryman logo and the Mini logo as well. Over that, the LED taillights bring in a new design, and with the Union Jack livery, I think it looks quite good at night. Now, overall, in terms of its design, like the back, it's gotten a lot more contemporary. Now, there are not a lot of changes in the design from the outgoing model, but there are enough to differentiate and like it over the older model. Now, where it really truly shines is the design and the features inside. So let me take you inside and show you what it's got. So like the outside, the interior too, the design is pretty contemporary, it's pretty modern, and the dashboard is entirely finished in this textured material. It kind of harks back to cars of the 80s and 90s, but right now Mini can call it new age. And over that, a lot of the materials used in the Mini Countryman is from sustainable materials. So I think Mini is doing pretty good job there in terms of the quality of materials, but also looking at efficiency and sustainability. As you can see, the finishing on the dashboard, it goes from a blue transitioning to this bronze finish at the back. Now, this is something I've never seen in a car like this design, and it's quite nice. Over that, you get nice chunky door handles, and this is also finished in that bronzish accents. And overall, throughout the entire car, there's a theme of blue and bronze going on, and I think it's quite nice. Then if you look at the steering wheel, it's nice, it's thick, but if I had to cover the logo, it will remind you of a BMW, but that's not a bad thing. It still falls pretty nicely to the hand. And another interesting finish is this sturdy cloth third spoke at the bottom, and it's again something I've never seen again in another car, and it's pretty practical too. The door bin is quite large. You get two large cup holders over here. However, you do get the storage area on the bottom of the center console, not on the armrest as I'd mentioned, and it's pretty small. It's not movable either like the previous generation. It's a little difficult to fit everything you want here, and again it's a little difficult to reach this storage area, especially when the armrest is pulled out all the way, and this too doesn't have any storage areas. It's just in the middle of the center console and right below the wireless charging tray. Speaking of which, the wireless charging tray is also finished in that textured finish which I talked about earlier, and this is another nice touch. And just above that, the main controls and the buttons for the functionality of this car is pretty cool. You get cockpit-like controls. Now some may like it, some don't. I do, but I had my friends and my family and they thought it was a bit cringy, but nevertheless you get the toggle switches for the experiences or the drive modes. Then you get a rotary on-off switch and another toggle switch for the transmission. Now all these buttons are pretty tactile, they're nice to hold, they're not flimsy in any sort of way, so overall it goes with the entire quality and the ambience of the cabin. Now if I have to talk about space, what I really love is the comfort that these sport seats have to offer. They hold me in place quite well. They're cushiony enough for long or short drives, but the only thing is that you can't adjust your headrest. Now from the design and the comfort, let's move on to features, and the biggest talking point is this 9.5-inch OLED screen which sits in the middle. Now this houses the infotainment system and the instrument console as well. Now the graphics are pretty sharp, it looks pretty cool. I find the controls a little confusing. I think they did spend a lot of time making it seem pretty contemporary, similar to the design of the overall car. It does look cool, but again you have to fiddle with it and play with it for at least a day or two before you can set your hands on all the controls. Now even the AC vent controls have been given on the touchscreen, but I wish they were physical buttons on the console below it, but then again that's what it is, that's what modern cars give you now. But the features are pretty cool. You do get a fisheye camera, you do get a welcome feature, testing themes and ambient lighting settings which you can toggle from these experiences. Now you have loads of experiences, some just change the seat settings, the ambient lighting, the lights all around, but some of them also change the drive modes and the drive characteristics of the car, which I'll talk about when we talk about performance. Then you have a heads-up display here so that you don't have to take your eyes off the road and look at the speedometer here. You do get your instrument console readout and the information right here on this heads-up display. That was all for the front row, and I think it's impressed pretty well. But one of its highlights is the space which you get at the back, because in this car you'll be driving and most likely you'll have a family to haul around. So let's check that out. Now alright, I'm sitting at the back and the front seat has been set to my height, which is 5'6", and I definitely get a lot of space. Definitely more than the iX1, its sister car, which it's based on. This because the improved overall length, you do get a lot of knee room. You have enough place to keep your legs under the seat, so you can really, lounge out and relax. And even the shoulder room, the headroom, see how much headroom I have. And I can spread out, the panoramic sunroof opens and gives you the feeling of airiness. You'll be quite comfortable in this place. In fact, even if elderly people sit here who are claustrophobic, they'll also be pretty happy. Then you do get a large armrest. These also have cup holders, and I think overall the comfort is a pretty big talking point. Even the seats are pretty cushiony. They have enough support for my thighs, for my lower back. Now at the front you didn't get any headrest adjustment. Here you do, and I think that is also a big part in getting your comfort exactly right. Now both the seats on either side is good enough to seat fully grown adults, and no matter if they're 5'6" or they're taller, they'll accommodate them pretty well. Even the middle row, I think the middle row is pretty wide. It will fit a large kid or a teenager, and the space is flat enough to keep your legs over here as well. However, being a family car, one thing I did wish this had was a sun blind. Now, like the new 5 Series long wheelbase, which doesn't get any, well, you can't complain if a Mini doesn't give you any sun blind, but I think it should have been looked at, because this is a family car. But you have two Type-C charging ports, Now, one thing which I'd like to mention is the fact that the phone storage space at the back, this does get pretty hard plastic, and that can be a pinch point for some. But overall, the space is good. I really like the design. It transitions from a cool blue shade at the front to this warm and inviting bronze shade at the back, and I think that's pretty thoughtfully done. Enthusiasts and the drivers will like it at the front, whereas the passengers will feel quite comfortable and cozy at the back. So overall, I think Mini's done a pretty good job in terms of the design and the comfort and the ambience which this car has to offer. It's pretty cool, it's retro looking, it's modern. It does have a few niggles, mainly with the features. Now, one thing I did mention at the front was that the infotainment scene does have the good graphics. It does have a bit of confusing controls, but this being such a new car, it did have niggles in the form of getting stuck from time to time. I couldn't change experiences. Sometimes it'll go all black and won't change for a while. I'd select one BMW ID profile, but then it'll just get stuck on one screen and won't have any other functions. Now that is something I think Mini will address with the final production version of the cars for the customers. But yeah, that's something I faced, and I think that was a bit of a head scratcher. And I think that's done with the interior. It's pretty comfortable. The design is pretty nice. You do get nice features, but I think it's time to start driving it, because this is a Mini and it does have some tricks up its sleeve. Alright, so first things first, does this Mini Countryman drive like a Mini? Well, it gets a single motor setup, and in international markets, well, you have a double motor setup, but here, maybe for affordability reasons, that's what you get. And the motor, well, that makes 204 bhp and 250 newton meters of peak torque, and Mini claims they can do 0 to 100 in 8.6 seconds. Now, when it comes to driving, you get in, the first thing that you notice is that it is pretty refined. It's very linear, it's progressive, and it's brisk. It's not fast, but it's definitely brisk. Now, this is the same motor setup that we experienced in the BMW iX1. In that, it felt kind of lethargic, and that kind of had to do with how the car was to drive in the first place. This, because the handling is so taut and responsive, the performance for the motor feels equally compliant. You really tend to have a lot of fun when you start pushing this vehicle, and even when you want to just relax, chill out and drive sedately, well, it really slows down and drives at a pretty relaxed pace. Now, there are drive modes to choose from. Mini calls it experiences, Mini experiences, and you have quite a few to choose from, but there are a few which actually change the driving characteristics. First and foremost, you get a core mode, which basically is between a fast and efficient driving mode. In that, the acceleration isn't very fast and the brake regeneration isn't all that intrusive, but overall it's something which you'd use pottering around the city and going about your day-to-day business when you're not in a hurry or you're not low on range, when you just want to chill out and have a pretty relaxed driving experience. Then we come to the efficient driving mode. This is something which you'd use when you're running low on range. If you're someone like me who does have a lot of range anxiety, as soon as the range goes below 100 kilometers, I switch to efficient mode, and it's pretty compliant in its performance there too. The throttle response does get a little muted, the brake regeneration does go higher, but that's not to say that it gets slow and lethargic. It still feels pretty quick. It's brisk in its overtaking maneuvers, even between the speeds of 80 to 100 kilometers per hour, and you want to overtake someone quickly, you can get out of the lane, speed up and come back down to your required speed. It is not a hindrance or intrusive in any way. It's really the perfect balance which you'd want in order to end up saving range. Then you have the go-kart mode. I think this is one of my favorite. It sharpens up the steering response and it also sharpens up the throttle response. So overall, this is the one which I chose to be in most of the time. I do like having fun in my Minis, and this does provide you the thrills. And then if you come to the battery capacity, well, you get a 66.45 kilowatt hour battery pack, and Mini claims that you can do a range of 462 kilometers. Now, in my time of driving, we were shooting in Greater Noida, and if I had to really floor the throttle in order to get here. I did get late in the morning once, and I ended up using about 140 kilometers of range for a 80 kilometer commute. But while heading back, I was gentle on the throttle. I wanted to save some range, and I ended up spending 60 kilometers of range for a 80 kilometer commute. So overall, the efficiency of the battery pack really depends on how you drive it, and 400 to 420 kilometers of range isn't too much of a stretch if you're efficient with your driving habits. And then finally, we come to handling aspect of this car, which really impressed me for a car of this size and weight. It's really sharp and it impresses you from the get-go. The steering is also pretty direct, and that also gives you the confidence to start pushing it more and more. Yes, the steering is electric, and that does bring along some amount of artificial heft to feel, but overall it's quite responsive. The Mini DNA is pretty clear to see here. Another aspect which I really liked was how well the new Countryman managed to balance comfort and handling. Despite the 19-inch alloy wheels, the car glides over rough patches and remains pliant while doing so. If you really start pushing the car, it does tend to remind you that it is a large and heavy family vehicle, but that only comes in the form of the tires screaming out. The Countryman itself tends to hold its line well and not get out of shape much. The brakes are sharp and equally responsive. Bringing such a massive vehicle to a stop would definitely be a tall order, but the new Countryman gets it done well. It may be lacking when it comes to sheer acceleration, but it gives you the confidence to sustain higher speeds, knowing full well you can stop on a dime. So we're finally done with driving the Mini Countryman. As you can see, it was raining, it's sunshine now, and we did have a really nice day. As for the Mini Countryman, well, it's large, it drives well, gets a lot of features. Now, of course, I wish we'd gotten the twin motor version, because this feels a little lethargic when you want some utter performance from that motor. But over that, I think it's pretty fun to drive. It handles well. I think it'll be a good balance. I think the best balance that you can get currently in the market of nice handling dynamics with the space good enough for a family of 5. Now, when the first Mini Countryman came out, it did raise a lot of eyebrows and didn't find a lot of takers. But then progressively over the years, it's gotten a lot better and it's gotten a lot more popular as well. Now, I'd go as far as saying this definitely is the best Mini Countryman so far. In my opinion, if you're someone who's looking for a vehicle that can handle really well and can really accommodate all your family and your passengers in utmost comfort in cosetting manner, you should really check this out. It is something which you'd really like. So guys, what did you think of the Mini Countryman? Would you want something like this over maybe a Mini Cooper or a BMW iX1? Tell us in the comment section down below. My name is Karan Mathur. Thank you for watching.